Hello, accountability buddies. One last final attempt at recording this episode. Um, yeah, it's been a rough one to record. Traffic is crazy and it's distracting me from my conversation with myself. It is late afternoon, early evening, and I'm headed to work. I had a full, well, half day of work, my regular sort of thing, um, and now I'm headed in for an evening thing. Um, but I rode my bike to work yesterday. I did 8 miles total, or right around 8 miles, because I rode into work. It was a little under 3 miles and about 5 miles on the way home. Because I went from Salem. We did a meeting in a different location, so it was 3 miles from my house instead of the usual 12 and a half. And then for my route home, I rode from downtown, or not downtown, historic Salem. Uh, Roundabout, went down to the Willows, looped back around, and then headed home. So I did about 5 miles on the way home. So 8 miles total, just about. It was a good ride. It was super hot. I planned on riding in today because we were um, only going to be there for a half day, and I figured it would be an easy ride. So, but I woke up this morning. We had a heat advisory, we had thunderstorm advisories, and then finally, humidity warnings. So the heat advisory had bumped the temperature warnings up to mid to high 90s with like 80% humidity. And finally, a thunderstorm warning. So I don't play around with thunderstorms, so I decided not to ride in. So with all of that, I didn't get the exercise I really wanted today. I did go for a walk with my coworker after we got done, and that was blisteringly hot. It was brutal, not fun at all. So we ended up going for a short walk to get a cup of coffee together. That was nice. So, yeah, that's that in terms of like the exercise report for the last couple of days. And so, the thing that I wanted to talk about today is body positivity and how difficult it is to be positive about my body as it changes. So, for me, like as someone who's now solidly um, in their middle age and late 40s, especially the end of this month, we'll be able to officially say, yes, late 40s. Because I'm solidly in that part of my life, um, I have an aging body. My body is changing. And I've never thought of my becoming older as a like death sentence. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh my god, I'm getting old." Oh. I've always been comfortable with the idea of being middle aged and older. And I think part of it is I grew up with women and men who they never complained about being old or feeling old or like they couldn't do the things that they wanted to do. Um, because they just did it. They just went out and did it. Whatever it was they wanted, they went out and did it. My mom always did the stuff that she wanted to do. My grandmother couldn't stop her from doing anything she wanted to do, even if she shouldn't have done it. I remember getting in trouble for letting my grandmother ride my skateboard when she was in her 50s. So, yeah, like I think about those sorts of things and the role models I had growing up within my family and how being older was attaining freedom. Like, for my grandparents, that's when they were suddenly free to do the things that they'd always wanted to do. They were people who, worked 6 days a week, were on call, sometimes working 7 days a week. And so for them, vacations and and eventually retirement, that was freedom. Being old was freedom. And I guess I kind of always saw that as something that would happen for me too. Um, and in terms of like body positivity, like aging is one thing, but body positivity is another thing. I was an athlete in high school. I was active throughout college. I was physically mostly fit. I was not, six pack abs in college or anything like that, but up until like my late 20s, I was pretty physically fit. And that's when I started gaining weight, when I got a stressful job where I was working 60, 80 hours a week, and, doing the things that I enjoyed outside and exercise were just more difficult to do. It was harder to fit that into my schedule. And there was always an excuse not to fit it into my schedule. Well, I'm tired. I don't have time. When am I going to do this? Or like, you know, I don't have time because I'm staying at work for an extra 5 hours so I can pay the bills. Um, so this is like one side of things, but I don't think I really started thinking of myself as a heavier person, or I'm just going to use the word fat person. I didn't start thinking of myself as a fat person until my mid 30s, and I know I was heavier before that. I know I gained more weight before that, but it wasn't until then where I was like, yeah, I'm a fat person. And now I've gotten to a point where I've been comfortable being heavy. Like it's being a heavier person, being chubby, being morbidly obese. Generally speaking, it's not particularly comfortable in society, but it's easy to, like, not take care of myself, and not really worry about what I look like. Like, my clothes don't fit. Well, they don't fit because I'm chubby. Um, so that's never been something that I particularly worry about. Now I'm in a point in my fitness journey, my health journey, where I feel healthier. I feel fit. I feel strong. I have all of these feelings about myself that have definitely changed over the last 6 months. Um, and that's how I feel inside. I feel better. Um, and I know that doesn't match up with how I look on the outside. And there's this sudden change in that. There's a difference between how I feel like I look and how I actually look, or how I feel about myself and how I look. Um, and I think I've tried not to like delve into toxic positivity in this, but I try to be very careful with how I talk about my body and how I feel like I look, without being negative. And that, just, I'm trying to be real with this conversation, and it was hard to see myself on camera and realize what I look like doesn't match up. And yes, action cam flattens and distorts things and makes them look different and not how you really look in reality. Because I can tell you that the way I looked in that video does not line up with how I feel like I look in the mirror. Um, so that's like a whole other side of this thing too. Is like, being on camera definitely changes things. And I I'm trying to be positive with how I feel like I look, right? Like, but that's hard. It's hard to say, like, I feel healthy, I feel fit, and I feel strong, and yet I'm still morbidly obese. I'm still a fat person. And I know that all of those things can actually coexist with one another. I can be healthy, I can be fit, I can be strong, and still be a fat person. But I also grew up in an era where that was not, body positivity was not a thing. Like, what people around me growing up and media that I grew up with were incredibly negative about weight and heavy people. Um, and people around me were incredibly judgmental of heavier people. And so that's all stuff that I've internalized. And so, like, every time, like, I think about myself as a heavy person, I think about myself as healthy, fit, and all of these other things, I am fighting years of ingrained commentary about heavy people. um, and that is, I think, something that anyone in my age range, Gen Xers, early millennials, whatever you want to call it, those are all things that we have to contend with. We all have to have this conversation with ourselves, as like, yeah, I can be all of these things all at the same time, and that's okay. Um, you know, and I don't have to be negative about how I feel or how I look. I can be positive about that. And I think it's going to be something that I continue to struggle with as I continue to feel healthier, fitter, and feel stronger. Like, you know, uh, that is like, it's just going to be something that I have to have continued conversations with myself about, and probably talk about on this channel as well, because I think they're important things. Like having the real conversations about health and fitness is incredibly important. Talking about the things no one else talks about is important. You know, Talking about feeling like a deflated balloon, super important, because no one ever talks about the discomfort of losing weight. No one has that conversation, and I'm going to continue having that conversation. Like, you know, every time I lose another 5 pounds, I'm like, yeah, that deflated balloon feeling is really hitting me hard. Like, you know, every time I do a 30-mile bike ride, and my legs get the pump on, um, it it feels good to do that, but it also feels kind of awful, because then my thighs and my inner thighs all feel like a deflated balloon because they got hard muscle underneath them, and then the deflated skin on top of it. Um, and yeah, so anyway, I'm getting rambly. I've shot this like 4 or 5 times now, and I think just having real conversations about the real stuff that goes on as I continue to lose weight and get, not even lose weight, like that's not the point. It's like as I continue to get healthier and fitter and feel stronger, uh, and the side effect of that in some cases being weight loss means that my body is going to continue to change, and I need to figure out how I'm going to be positive about that, how I'm going to embrace the changes. And perhaps part of that is having these conversations, these difficult conversations about what it feels like, what it looks like, how I feel, how I look, and the disparities between those things. But with that, I'm going to end this here. I'm going to say thank you to everyone who's watching the videos, who's commenting, um, everyone who's just interacting. I appreciate it. Um, if you find this helpful, find any value in it, hit the like button, subscribe. Even better, share it. Share it on your threads. Share it on your Instagram. Share it on your YouTube. I don't know. Share it. Get the word out so other people hear about this, and have more difficult, awkward conversations. So with that, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.